You know, what we choose to measure in business, and even in life, seems pretty simple on the surface. But that choice, it's one of the most powerful decisions we can possibly make. It can sharpen our focus and launch us to incredible success. Or it can slowly and kind of silently lead us straight into a disaster. Today, we're going to dig into how measuring the wrong thing can bring down even the biggest companies.
So how does this actually happen? Well, we're going to kick things off with a classic story that really sets the stage. Then, we'll unpack the two biggest traps any organization can fall into: the obsession with growth and the illusion of efficiency. From there, we'll see how these numbers can corrupt a company from the inside out. And then finally, we'll look at how the best in the world avoid these mistakes by finding their true north. So let's start back in the 1980s with a story from the auto industry. It's a tale of two giants, General Motors and Toyota, who chose to measure two very different things. And well, they ended up on two completely different roads to the future.
And the choice they made couldn't be clearer. GM was obsessed with one single number: speed, cars per hour. It was simple, it was easy to track, and man, it made their reports look fantastic. Toyota, on the other hand, focused on something way harder to measure: defects per car. I mean, they would literally stop the entire production line if a single worker spotted one tiny flaw. GM execs thought they were crazy, saying, "While we're building cars, Toyota is stopping to fix tiny issues." But here's the punchline: GM's speed led to record recalls, while Toyota's obsession with quality made them the most profitable automaker in the world.
This classic mistake actually has a name, and it's the core idea for this entire explainer: the false proxy. Think of it as the villain of our story. It's that seductive number that's easy to measure, easy to put in a report, and feels like progress, but it's a total decoy. And we fall for it because our brains are just wired to love simplicity. A false proxy gives us that quick, tangible hit of accomplishment, which feels way better than a complex, long-term goal. It's a stand-in for what actually matters, and as we're about to see, chasing it is a recipe for disaster.
Okay, so let's see this false proxy in action. The first and honestly the most common trap is the obsession with growth at all costs. It's that moment when chasing bigger numbers just hides the fact that the business itself is built on a totally crumbling foundation.
Let's talk about WeWork. Back in 2016, if you looked at each department by itself, they were all absolutely crushing it. I mean, the real estate team was signing leases at a record pace, marketing campaigns were going viral, the sales teams were hitting every single membership target, and HR was hiring 1,000 people every single month. By their own individual metrics, everyone was a winner.
But when you pulled the camera back from all those individual teams and looked at the company as a whole, this was the result: a nearly $2 billion annual loss. How is that even possible? It's because while everyone was winning their own little game, the company was losing the only game that mattered. Each team was hitting its false proxy while totally ignoring the real mission of building a sustainable business.
And you know, we saw a really similar story play out at Groupon. They were completely obsessed with the false proxies of more daily deals and just a bigger user base. But in their race for quantity, they completely sacrificed quality. They ended up attracting bargain hunters who weren't loyal at all, and they pushed away high-quality businesses. Their valuation just collapsed because they forgot that the true measure of success wasn't the number of users, but the loyalty of those users.
All right, this next trap is even more subtle because it really masquerades as a virtue: efficiency. This is the danger of becoming world-class at perfecting yesterday's model while the future is being built somewhere else entirely.
And oh man, the poster child for this trap has got to be BlackBerry. In 2007, they were literally on top of the world. So when the iPhone arrived, what did they do? They doubled down on what they did best. They measured and optimized for keyboard perfection and email speed. The problem was they were perfecting yesterday's game. While they were busy building the world's best physical keyboard, Apple was building an entire ecosystem in your pocket. BlackBerry became incredibly efficient at something that was very quickly becoming irrelevant.
This shows just how badly the efficiency trap can backfire. Take United Airlines. For a while there, they measured success by one primary metric: cutting costs. And on paper, it worked. Quarterly profits went up. But the real cost was hidden. They were just eroding customer trust and brand loyalty, which eventually led to public relations nightmares that cost them way more in the long run than they ever saved.
Okay, so here's the really crucial point. These false proxies are way more than just bad strategy.
They can actually seep into the walls of a company and poison the culture itself, changing not just what people do, but who they are at work.
At Wells Fargo, the cultural decay started with this simple, catchy slogan from the CEO, 8 is great. The goal was for every single customer to have 8 different Wells Fargo products. It was an easy-to-measure, really ambitious target. It also turned out to be a complete recipe for disaster.
The pressure to hit that one simple number became so immense that employees resorted to fraud on an industrial scale. And the result? 3.5 million fake accounts. Just let that sink in for a second. This wasn't a case of a few bad apples. It was the totally predictable outcome of an entire system being aimed at a single, toxic metric.
And that's the ultimate danger. For thousands of employees, the mission was no longer about serving customers or building financial security for them. The mission was simply to hit the number. The false proxy had completely taken over, replacing the company's true purpose, and it had devastating consequences for customers and the bank's reputation.
So, if we know that chasing these simple, seductive numbers can be so dangerous, what's the alternative? How do the truly great organizations measure what actually matters and stay on course?
It's a critical question, right? And the answer is kind of surprising. The best way to measure what matters isn't always with a number you can track on a spreadsheet. Sometimes it's a guiding principle.
At Google, they found out that when search results took just half a second longer to load, user engagement just fell off a cliff. So, they made speed their obsession. Measuring milliseconds wasn't just some technical goal, it became their proxy for keeping their promise to the user, for respecting their time, and for earning their trust.
And then you have Amazon, where Jeff Bezos had this really powerful non-numerical metric. In important meetings, he would leave one chair empty, and that chair, it represented the most important person in the room, the customer. So when teams started arguing over internal priorities, they were forced to ask, what would the person in that chair want? It was a physical proxy for their ultimate mission, customer obsession. So let's try to bring all this together. If there's just one thing you remember, let it be this: what you measure is what you get. Those easy-to-track numbers are often just dangerous decoys. And as we've seen, these false proxies don't just mess up your strategy, they corrupt your entire culture. The solution is to look beyond the easy numbers and find those guiding principles, that true north that orients every single decision you make. So, this leaves us with one final question to think about. Whether it's in your business, your team, or even in your own life, what is your empty chair? What's that single guiding principle that defines true success for you? And maybe more importantly, is that what you're actually measuring?